My team and I reached out and scheduled the interviews that you're about to watch in this episode of Gloves Off. Alex Preddy was still alive. And then just a few days after these interviews were scheduled, this past Saturday, January 24th, Alex was executed by ICE agents on the streets of Minneapolis. Just 3 weeks after Renee Good was executed by ICE agents. We are living in a moment where the federal government is killing American citizens who have done nothing wrong, nothing illegal, and were only exercising their constitutional right to protest peacefully, non-violently, observe and film. And then the government lies to all of us, point blank, and demands that we believe their version of the story and not what we witnessed with our very own eyes. It is incredibly hard not to feel helpless. I know that I have these past few days. And so in putting this episode together, we really strove to zoom out of the fast evolving news story and talk to some of the incredible leaders on the ground in Minnesota who have been leading not only the fight in Minnesota against ICE and DHS, but have been showing all of us in this country and around the world what it looks like to fight and resist in this moment. This is the entire reason we started this show, was to find the people who can inspire all of us and show us what it means to show up in this moment for our communities, for our country. And that is what the people and these leaders from Minnesota have done. I am really grateful to our guests for having made the time amidst everything that's happening on the ground in Minnesota to join all of us and shed light and inspire all of us. But before we get into those conversations, I want to express our deepest sorrow and sympathy from the entire Courier team and family, to the family members, friends, and colleagues of Alex Preddy and Renee Good. They should not have lost their lives standing up for their neighbors and their communities. And I hope and believe that justice will be served, but it is going to take all of us. Please share this episode and these conversations with your friends and networks, because it is going to take all of us lifting up these stories, lifting up this playbook that Minnesota has shown us, and making sure that we are all getting smarter, more strategic, more focused, and resilient together in this fight. This is Gloves Off. Thank you so much, Attorney General, for joining us amidst everything that you're going through right now and leading on. When we actually scheduled this interview late last week, Alex Preddy was still alive. We all know, and we all watched with our eyes what happened this past Saturday in the Twin Cities when he was executed by ICE agents while he was trying to protect a woman and fellow observer. I don't need to go into the details, you know really well, but we were going to have a conversation about the occupation of ICE in your city and the murder of Renee Good. And now there have been 2 American citizens murdered by ICE. You have been at the forefront, at ground zero of this, and leading the fight against DHS and ICE for your state of Minnesota. So tell me, what actually are you doing to fight back, and how is that going? And are there any guardrails actually that can be enforced and put in place given how this administration has responded to these events?
So we're moving out on all fronts. I'm the Attorney General, so I have the ability to sue. And so we filed a lawsuit against the Operation Metro Surge, suing the Department of Homeland Security and Secretary Noem. The basis for our lawsuit is that, one, we are not obligated under the 10th Amendment to do the bidding of ICE. And because we have opted to devote our state resources to our state needs and not those of the federal government, which we're not paid to do, because we have decided to do that, the federal government has surged ICE presence in our state in a punitive way. For example, the normal complement of ICE agents in Minnesota is about 80. We're somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000. If it's 4,000, they've escalated about 4,900% increase because we won't do what they tell us to do, which we're not legally obligated to do. And the president of the United States used a word that also starts with R. Maybe you heard. He said the time for reckoning and retribution. Out of his, right at the tip of his fingers through his little Truth Social, he said retribution. He also said that Minnesota, he won Minnesota 3 times in a row, but the corrupt leaders of Minnesota denied him his election victories. So screw them. And he seems to be really salty that we keep voting against him. He can't even bring himself to believe we voted against him. We have voted against him 3 times in a row, proud of it. But the bottom line is, he's real mad about that. So this is retaliation. This is punishment.
And retaliation by sending largely untrained thugs and agents to wreak absolute terror on your communities and violence.
Well, look, there's simply, just from a straight up, straight line standpoint, there are simply not enough people who have no legal status in the United States who are committing felony offenses walking around Minnesota. There's just not enough of them to justify a 4,900% increase. So obviously, what do a bunch of armed dudes with masks do when they don't have a real job to actually go do? Well, one of the things they do is they knock on doors, show me your papers. They grab people wearing hijabs and show me your papers. What do? They bully people, they throw people to the ground. They do horrible, nasty, bad things. And by the way, Tara, you should know this. I was talking to some folks who are from southern border states where the truth is, the Sinaloa cartel and others, they do stuff that is bad and harmful, right? Border states like Arizona, New Mexico, places like that have reported to me that they have a 35% decrease. Well, obviously, if Minnesota has a 4,900% increase, some people who might actually need to have these people, I don't know, dealing with fentanyl or whatever, don't have them. Now, good. I'm not making any argument in favor of ICE anywhere. I'm so disgusted with this organization. But I will tell you that not every state is the same. And some states might feel that these services of these people has a value. I can see none for our state. But I will tell you that as they're targeting us in a punitive way, they're depriving other people who feel that their presence could be beneficial in terms of drug, interdiction, other things. So they're hurting the country to hurt us, all because they're mad that we won't vote for Trump and that they want retribution.
That's right. And I've even seen and heard some ICE agents have gone on the record saying, and immigration courts gone on the record saying that they're targeting everyone now, not just former criminals or felons whatsoever. So that gig has been up for a while, but
they're targeting citizens.
Right. AG, in this moment, it doesn't even feel like it's about immigration. They're killing American citizens who are peacefully, legally exercising their constitutional right to peacefully protest and observe and film, doing everything legal, and are being executed before our eyes. So this doesn't feel like this is about immigration. And pairing it with what you said about political retribution by the president, where do you see this going, not just within the Twin Cities and your state of Minnesota, but we know that it's not going to end in Minnesota. Where does it go from here?
Well, this is a good question because I think that I got a lot of good friends in Chicago, in Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, other places where they have done these surges. And Minnesota is the single largest deployment of ICE agents in the history of immigration enforcement. But what I'm saying to you is with all this money they got, like $70 billion, they might surge everywhere.
I think that's the goal, right?
Right. And so they're trying to figure out how to do it here. Now, here's the thing, though, Tara. The thing that makes ICE different from every other law enforcement agency including the FBI, everybody else, is that first, local police departments, they're from that community. They have political leaders like mayors and chiefs who can get dragged into a community meeting and say, your officers are not respecting the community they're supposed to serve. And I can tell you, because I prosecuted the people who murdered George Floyd, that after that, there was a lot of community back and forth about how do we prevent this from ever happening again. But the reason that the local community could do it is because these leaders respond to the community. So we got a new police chief who's much more likely to listen to community. The mayor understood the need. The city council members understood the need. But these ICE people owe their allegiance to one person, and that is Donald J. Trump. The FBI, for all the problems, that we went through COINTELPRO, the church committee hearings, you may recall some of this stuff. Some of your listeners might know about how the FBI under J. Edgar Hoover went through sort of they went through a lot of scrutiny based on some things they did in the 60s, had to come out on the other side, of that process. The ICE hasn't gone through anything like that. This is why ICE, they actually have police emblazoned across their thing, but they have never taken any de-escalation training. They wear masks. Our local police don't wear masks. Our local police have their name and their badge, their number right there. The ICE doesn't have that. If a local police officer does something that the chief doesn't like, they're going to get called into a room. They might get complained about, and if they kill somebody, there'll be an investigation. Not ICE, none of that.
Can we double down on this point? Because I think this is really important for the folks listening, and even me, I get confused about this. Why is it that ICE agents have this level of immunity? Like, why hasn't Jonathan Ross or the agent who murdered Alex this past weekend been arrested in the state of Minnesota?
Good question. First of all, I think that it is important for everyone to know that there is no legal barrier to hold a federal agent accountable for a state level crime. There's no legal barrier. Nobody gets to commit crimes, not even the feds. And the state can absolutely prosecute them, and we can go into that a little bit more. And so let me jump to the end. Anyone listening to your show, I don't think should come to the conclusion that the individuals who committed these alleged crimes will never have to face justice. I believe that they will. Now, I'm a prosecutor, Tara, so I can't say, oh, they're guilty, blah, blah. I don't do that.
Of course.
Other people do that. You're not going to hear me call it murder, but that doesn't mean I don't have my own opinion about it. It means that I have a responsibility to maintain a fair criminal justice system that appears fair to everyone concerned. And as I said, I never said Derek Chauvin was guilty until the jury said he was guilty. But you can believe I had my own thoughts about it, or else he would never have been charged. But I maintain my professional position because that's my role. I don't ask TV commentators, podcasters, ordinary citizens, your opinion about what your eyes are showing you. Go for it. But for me, I'm not going to use that language because of the role I play. So do not conclude that Jonathan Ross will never have to face the consequences of his actions, and the people involved with the death, the homicide of Mr. Preddy, Nurse Preddy, who was a ICU nurse serving our veterans. So let me get back to your question. Why aren't they arrested yet? Well, when they killed Renee Good, our local officials did what we always do, is try to go into the scene, collect evidence, take pictures, process the scene, pick up the shell casings, get the gun, do all that. Local federal officials said, no, we got orders from Washington. You guys cannot have access to anything. And Tara, I'm talking about real deal. Now we're talking about a state agent, a state investigator, and a federal agent. The federal agent said, we won't give it to you. And the state agent said, yeah, man, but you know me. We work together all the time. Yeah, I got orders from the boss upstairs in Washington. No, I can't do it. I'm telling you that state agents have got to ask themselves whether it is in the public interest to get into a physical confrontation with federal agents. I'm telling you, no matter how pumped up anybody listening to your show is, that is something that we should all try to avoid. And so I don't want anyone to think that we're not going to get it. We're going to get it. I'm telling you, we're going to get it. But I'm also telling you that that is a barrier that we've encountered. So on the Renee Good thing, they refused to give us access to the investigative file. There was another shooting in North Minneapolis that was non-fatal, same thing, refusal to process the scene and access to the scene. So when it came to the shooting death of Alex Preddy, we go to court, get a temporary restraining order from a judge on a Saturday night, where the judge orders the preservation of the file and enjoins, prohibits the destruction or altering of evidence. Now, my question to you, Tara, is why in the United States, we know it's flawed, and we know its history is deeply flawed, but we do believe that we have a criminal justice system that has integrity and some accountability. Why would you need a court order just to stop ICE from destroying evidence? Well, that's extraordinary, the fact that we would have to do it, but that's what the position they put us in. And the court did rule in our favor, and we are going to process that scene. And the people who killed Alex Preddy should know that they will not be able to just say, oh, we're federal agents, we get to do whatever we want. No, there will be some explaining, there will be some answering, and the criminal justice system of Minnesota is going to put them through the normal course. I'm not saying what the outcome is going to be because I can't. But I will say, nobody should feel like, oh, we're good. We're federal agents, we shoot people as we please. That we're not going to tolerate it. But it has to do with the obstruction we've been receiving and the fact that, if we don't have the gun, we don't have everything. If we don't have a file, it's hard to make an arrest. But we've had to prosecute imperfect cases before where, the person is shot. They clearly was shot, but the gun is just, I don't know, missing. Not everything's going to be laid out in a platter for you in a criminal prosecution or investigation. And so we're not letting a few mishaps daunt us. But I will say, I wonder at one point and at one time, a court is going to be asked a question. Judge, since the federal government had the possession of this property, and since they've kept us from it, can we get an instruction that the absence of this evidence would have been to the disadvantage of the defendant? You follow what I'm saying?
I do. Yep.
I mean, I think that if you're going to hide evidence and destroy it, the court shouldn't tell the jury that you live with what you did.
And also, by the way, there's a lot of evidence they couldn't destroy, like the video footage that can be
You're
vetted,
right.
of which there's
You're
multiple
right.
angles. So I'm very heartened, AG, to hear the conviction and the commitment in your voice and what you're saying that justice will be served, because I think this is at the crux of what everyone across this country and world who's watching you all at the front lines of this fight feels so perilous, because what happens when there is no rule of law? What happens when the federal government does not obey the law and just says, what are you going to do about it? And that feels like that's the moment we're in. And so I am so happy to hear you say justice will be served, because I think that's where we start to feel really, really helpless and hopeless about this. And you have, as you mentioned, this is not the first time you have been in the national spotlight with an unbelievable abuse of power and overreach that led to a senseless murder, as you brought the conviction for George Floyd's murder 6 years ago. And so how is this, number one, because part of the reason that I do this show is to really talk about not the news of the day and what's happening, but what it means to lead and fight right now in an effective way.
Very important.
You are doing that as we speak right now.
Well, so are you. So are you, Tara.
Oh, please, safety.
The free independent media is an indispensable partner for justice right now. The free independent media helping you understand what the hell is going on, because you sure can't know what's going on by watching Fox. And quite honestly, some of our mainstream media could do better. I'll leave it right there.
Ones that haven't bent their knee to the administration already.
Well, I mean,
But getting back to my question, AG, how did that experience and moment prepare you and shape you for this one, where again, you're in the national spotlight, you're at the front lines, and you guys are literally showing the rest of the country how to fight?
Well, let me just tell you this, Tara. So I'm 62, and I've been a lawyer since 1990. I got two kids who are both lawyers, and I feel like I've been around the block a little bit. And so I'll just tell you that we're just not at all nervous or afraid, or we're not intimidated, not at all, not even a little bit. We will prevail. And I'm promising that to everyone listening to your show. And I don't know when, and I don't know even exactly how, but I know we're not going to quit. So, of course, we're going to prevail. And what we're doing is right. What we're doing is we're just trying to get the truth out, whatever way it cuts.
That's right. Just the facts and the truth, and to be able to actually have an investigation and to charge these folks. And so that, again, it hurts me so much because I think so many of us feel so powerless. And people
Mm-mm.
like you who are in elected positions of power, we worry you are too in the face of this threat and
No,
this
not even a
administration.
little. But I bet you're not worn down. You're still fighting. You're still on the air. You're still talking about what people can and should do. And here's another thing. If you're lacking inspiration and you're feeling a little down, check out some of the video of Minnesotans walking and marching in 9 degree below. Not 9 degrees,
No,
9 degrees
9 degree
below.
below.
Right. And if you put a
Oh no, it's not.
wind chill, that's not even the wind chill. And so they're marching in the street, demanding. They got their signs, and most of them are handmade signs, and they are insisting upon justice, and they're not quitting. And so you put the free independent media together with the protesters, together with the people who are doing mutual aid, which is extremely important. People making sure the immigrant families have food, rides, things that they need just to get through this horrible moment. What it amounts to is a movement. And I'm telling you, Tara, we are developing an aesthetic of this moment as well. So you may remember the 60s, you had the civil rights marchers. This is before your time or even mine. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Well, they developed an aesthetic of the movement. And then later you had the 60s, James Brown, and you had an aesthetic. And then in the 90s you had like Public Enemy, Fight the Power. You had we are developed the artists. I just want to commend the artists who are writing poetry. I read a Amanda Gorman poem about Mr. Preddy, and I hope you can find that and post it for your listeners, because we're developing an aesthetic because the artists are making a big contribution. Our clergy people, we had like 100 clergy people get arrested on behalf. I mean, even Pope Leo is coming in strong.
No, Minnesota is showing us how it's done. It has not been the source of just the horrors we've watched. It has been that inspiration. It has been
Yeah,
unbelievable to watch. And you guys haven't just, the aesthetic of the movement isn't just being created there. And I love that though, because I haven't thought about it in those terms. The playbook, the deep local organizing, the
yes,
communities coming together, people are protecting people. It's
yes.
one of the most inspiring, moving things I've ever seen in my life. And yet it's all because it should not be happening. It should not have to
Shouldn't be
happen.
happening.
But I do believe that we all now can actually see the opposition movement and feel it in a way that we couldn't before these absolutely horrific, tragic murders.
And I'll just, if I may add, Tara, these terrible, horrible tragedies with Renee Good and Alex Pretty, and the Venezuelan man who is still alive, and I think they don't want his name out because he didn't die, but he was shot. These things are just really the culmination, right? We've had to sue Donald Trump 50 times since last January 20th. The first one was on birthright citizenship. The second one was on his attempt to impound trillions of dollars of congressionally approved spending. After that, you got everything from him trying to stop EV infrastructure to grants on crime victims, to trying to interfere with the National Institute of Health. We've sued him over 50 times. The more recent ones are the supplemental nutrition assistance. So he's trying to punish the poor and actually persecute people who don't have enough food to eat. So this is the fight that we're in, and it's been legal, and now it's really converted to a street protest movement. And again, Without the podcasters like you, I don't know where we would be. You guys are just killing it. Keep it up. Don't get tired, and have faith that we will win. We're going to win. It all comes together. So one thing, if you'll allow me, Tara, if you don't mind me to make a mention, friends, I get it. Sometimes when politicians start talking about elections, it feels like us regular folk, and I'm a politician, by the way, these politicians are asking us to do them a favor by voting for them, by donating to them. Let me put it another way. Trump escalated ICE against Minnesota and several other places as a result of an election. Now let's think about that. If the progressive left entertains the idea that a progressive politician asking for support in an election is some sort of crass, power grab, ladder climbing bullshit, if we think that, then aren't we leaving power off of the table that we could have? If we can get control of Congress in November, that changes the game for Trump. And what that means is that we can end this horror show. I'm saying this, Tara, because somebody said to me, I don't want to hear any politicians raising money until you stop this bad thing from happening. I'm like, as emotionally with you I am, this doesn't end until we get new people in office.
No. And I think, AG, that the message has to be vote because we also know that the organizing right now, the pressure, it's work. We are seeing them squirm. They know that this is not good, what is going on, and who knows what they'll actually do about it, because we also know they double down and there's no floor for these people. But it is vote because I do think a lot of people, especially people who never miss an election, right? A lot of our listeners are very deeply engaged folks. There's plenty of them listening that also probably sat out 2024 because they didn't like the options, which, we're beyond that. We're beyond politics and partisanship, everybody. This is about, do we want to live in a society with rule of law or not? Because right now we're not fully. And so it's vote because a lot of people who do vote all the time are like, wait, what can I do right now?
I endorse that 100%.
That's the last question I have for you, AG, is are regular citizens like myself who are not elected leaders in power, are we powerless, or what role do we have in continuing to kind of fuel and grow this opposition movement that's so necessary?
Well, you're powerful. I got a few ideas. One is, if you're a mental health professional, and I'm talking about anybody from a psychiatrist to a psychologist to a school counselor, or just a clergy person, I'm asking you to collect yourselves into a group to contemplate and advise the rest of us on how to fight off depression, fight off anxiety, fight off these demobilizing mindsets.
Burnout, paralysis. Should I go on? That's why I'm doing this show. This is about the hope.
Right. We need the people who really have studied the operation of the human mind to help us through this, because we know Steve Bannon told us, we're going to flood the zone. We're going to overwhelm them. We're going to freak them out so that they don't know what to do. Well, if you know that's what they're trying to do to you, don't let them do it. So that's just the mental health people. Please organize yourselves. I can't organize you, but you can organize yourselves. The other one, the artists, please come together, continue to build, writing poems, making songs. This dude, Jesse Wells, you ever heard that little dude sing with his little guitar? I love that guy. I freaking love that guy. He is so good. He has this really sarcastic song called Join Ice, and he is just ripping them a new one the whole song along.
We'll have to close this episode with that. It's so good.
I'm telling you, the guy is a hero. I love the guy. But so he's sort of like a folksy singer-songwriter dude. Well, what about the hip hop version of that? What about the gospel version of that? What about the country version of that? We need the artists to engage. Thank you, Amanda Gorman. We need everybody to figure out, what am I into? What can I do? Because everybody needs to do this. And as you know, Tara, and I thank you for having me on your show, because by you inviting me, I can tell that you already know that what they're doing in Minnesota will not stay in Minnesota. They got plans for everybody, man, and we got to be fighting them at every turn. And so you can count on me and my fellow Democratic Attorney General to sue these people. We're going to be in the courtroom. The ACLU will be in the courtroom, but we will not win this battle in the courtroom. It's going to be won on the streets. It's going to be won on the airwaves. It's going to be won in the concert halls, and it's going to be won in our hearts. So we've got to be standing up strong, never back down. If you get down, call somebody. You need a picker upper, call me and I'll pump you up. But
I was going to say, AG, I thought this was going to be the most serious, depressing conversation, given you were in the midst of all of this, and you just gave me deep hope. Like, what an incredible message to leave us with. And thank you, Attorney General, for what you're doing, for leading the fight in Minnesota, but also showing the rest of the country how we fight and how we still embrace joy in this resistance, and that we will prevail, because that is definitely what I needed to hear today, and what I think so many people listening need to hear.
Gloves off, baby.
Gloves off. Thank you, AG.
See you later.
We're only 1 year into this new Trump administration, and it's getting harder and harder to read the news and every day see new threats against our First Amendment freedoms. Now is the time for us to look towards the helpers, folks who are strategically fighting to protect and preserve our constitutional freedoms every single day. One of those groups is Americans United for Separation of Church and State. Their mission is to protect everyone's right to live as they are and believe as they choose, so long as they don't harm others. AU is fighting back against this new wave of Christian nationalist threats happening all across this country. They filed 11 lawsuits last year alone, many against the Trump administration directly, all to protect our individual freedom of and from religion. Whether you support public education, LGBTQ+ rights, reproductive rights and freedoms, or some combination of all of those, AU relies on the help of folks like you to be able to do this incredibly important work. If you're looking for an organization to support and learn from in these trying times, head to au.org and see how you can get involved in this incredibly important fight against Christian nationalism. So now I'm so excited to be joined with Shiney-Ajay, who is the executive director of the Sunrise Movement, an organization I have followed with a lot of awe for many, many years for their incredible grassroots organizing work around climate change, but other issues. Aru, you also live on the ground in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I grew up in Minneapolis. It's my home, and I live here right now.
So you have been on the front lines. Before we dig into obviously what you have been living through and experiencing and all the incredible organizing work you and your team and volunteers have been doing there, I think it would be great for our listeners to learn a little bit more about you and the Sunrise Movement as well before we zoom in on what's actually going on in the ground right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunrise started in 2017. We started as a youth movement to stop the climate crisis. And we did some incredible work. We popularized the Green New Deal. We planned a lot of the climate strikes of 2019. And eventually we won the biggest ever piece of climate legislation, the Inflation Reduction Act. And that's still that's why I came to the movement. I really believe that we all deserve clean air and water and a livable future to look forward to.
What novel concepts?
What novel concepts, really basic stuff. And last year when Trump came back into office for the second time, we basically took an assessment of the strategic landscape and we were like, there is no serious way to stop the climate crisis under the level of authoritarianism that Trump is presenting right now, both because of his allegiance to oil and his desire to drag us back into the past, like an economy built on oil and coal, but also because of his absolute criminalization of protests, which is so core to movement building. And so we decided that we were going to temporarily broaden our focus to fighting authoritarianism and being able to end the authoritarian regime that I believe we are currently under, so that we could eventually go back to winning big pieces of federal climate legislation. So right now, all around the country, that's what our hubs are working on.
It's so important and it's so necessary and strategic, because none of these issues are going to get any traction or progress. We're always going to be fighting on defense unless we can actually win the much larger war that we're in right now. And I mean, a little bit more on Sunrise, but because I will say how I came to learn about you guys and be excited about the work is that sometimes it would be controversial in the sense that it doesn't look like traditional lobbying or organizing. I would, compare it more to a lot of what we used to see Greenpeace do here, less here in this country lately, more abroad, as they've done. But talk a little bit about your tactical strategies and approach at Sunrise.
Yeah, so we're a volunteer-run movement. We have hundreds of hubs all across the country, and we use like a wide variety of tactics. But I think we're best known for some of our like direct action tactics, where we went viral for doing a sit-in Nancy Pelosi's office with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez back in 2019. So that was really
I think this
notable.
was like her first week as a congresswoman.
Yeah, something back then. We've like shut down the White House calling for Joe Biden to pass climate legislation. So we really believe, and that's not the only thing we do. We engage in elections, we run campaigns, but those are some of our most flashy, attention-grabbing things that serve to bring a lot of people into our movement and build long-term power. And so right now, we're bringing some of that into our campaigning against authoritarianism, and we're thinking about how do you actually use actions as ways to interfere in the ways that ICE and authoritarianism operate in the day-to-day. And we've specifically started looking at, we call it non-cooperation. Basically, our core understanding is that everyday people run the aspects of everyday life that authoritarians rely on to execute anything that they want to do. And that's things like we run the hotels that people sleep in, we run the rental car agencies that ICE rents cars from. And so the idea is, how can everyday people sort of interfere in those points of operation enough that we can actually make it impossible for ICE to operate and put them on defense.
This is why I was so excited to talk to you for Gloves Off. This is like the definition of Gloves Off, and why I wanted to start the show is to actually talk about what are things that real people in the world are doing. Yes, elected officials, but we know that their powers are incredibly limited. We know that elections matter, and yet this movement has to go far beyond elections for us to be able to win, given they're throwing out things like due process, rule of law, operating with incredible immunity right now, and that it's going to take a real movement. A lot of us, and especially a lot of your colleagues and volunteers, haven't lived through real movement moments like this in their lifetime. And so it's just so important to kind of meet the moment. And I really think you guys are doing that. I heard you talk a little bit on another interview about a framework that you guys apply, which I think you were just sort of describing, but I really think like our audience and, just millions of Americans right now are actively looking for ways that they can get involved in what they can do in such an incredible way that we are not used to seeing really in this country because of how severe things have gotten. So talk to me a little bit about the framework that you guys use, and then let's talk specifically about the actions that you guys have been deploying in the Twin Cities and how many wins you have seen.
Yeah, so our framework right now basically comes from the core understanding that we are living through what we're calling a competitive authoritarian regime, which is to say that it's a regime that still uses elections, but is breaking so many laws, so many norms. And that means that the rules of democracy they're not always in play in the same way. So in a functioning democracy, the way you make change is kind of simple. You convince the majority of people to be on your side, and then politicians start to support it, and then you can pass a piece of legislation. I think there are a lot of ways in which the US has not functioned like that for quite a while, actually, but that's the theory of a democracy.
Not in my adult life.
Yeah, but that is the core theory of democracy and how you make change. Yeah, it sounds amazing. I would love to get to that. That sounds fantastic. In a competitive authoritarian regime, that stops being the case. That feedback loop of public opinion to outcome is really broken because, frankly, Trump doesn't care about public opinion. And also, there are increasing ways in which they are setting up an election to be, if not outright stolen, at the very least skewed in a wide variety of ways, through gerrymandering, through purging voter rolls, many, many ways. That's not me saying we shouldn't win elections. I really believe we should try and win elections, but I think we need to look in a wide variety of tactics to be able to contend for power. So we start to look at a framework called the Pillars of Support, which is basically looking at what are all the different sectors and ways in which authoritarian regimes rely on everyday people to be able to operate. And you can break it down within that. So one pillar might be the media, another pillar might be businesses, another pillar, and then within businesses, we've started doing this specifically for how ICE operates in Minneapolis. So within businesses, we're okay, hotels because they need to sleep somewhere, rental car agencies because that's how they get their cars, restaurants because that's where they get their food, but also food delivery drivers potentially because sometimes they're ordering food. There's like many ways. We've also been like roads, like they drive around on roads. So once you start to like list literally in the most logistical way, what is everything that ICE needs to operate? What is everything that nationally this administration needs to operate? Then you start to see a lot of little cracks in where you can interfere. So you're like, okay, they need hotels. What power do ordinary people have over hotels? Well, ordinary people are hotel workers. A lot of like hotel managers sympathize with what we're seeing. So there's sort of the like labor aspect of it. But also, everyday people book hotels. Hotels, offer things like a quiet place to sleep at night. Like, I'm like, what are ways that you can start to interfere in that? So in Sunrise, Twin Cities, we've been doing nonviolent, peaceful demonstrations in the middle of the night, where we like make a lot of noise and wake up people in hotels where we have confirmed ICE agents staying. And that's been really, really successful. We've actually had multiple hotels kick ICE out because of that. We've had other reports of hotels off the radar telling us like we've refused ICE because we don't want a noise protest at our hotel. So that's been specifically effective. And we've used other tactics as well. We've been calling into the hotels. We've like made reservations that we cancel last minute to sort of like both not let ICE be able to book, but also like show the hotel the financial cost of booking ICE. We've been exploring something. Next week, there's a liquor license hearing for a few of the hotels that are housing ICE. So we are passing around we're doing like a little 1 week campaign to revoke the liquor licenses of hotels housing ICE, because we're like, these armed agents are shooting people even without having access to liquor. Like,
or they are, who knows?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, there's like a lot of different avenues in, and that's just from like zeroing in on hotels. And the thing that I like about this framework is that, we like bring this to high schoolers and train them on it. We bring like it's not complicated. It's actually very intuitive, and it's something you can just like pass out and let anyone sort of figure out what are the buttons that I can push get in the way of what's happening. It's just organizing.
It's so amazing. It's so, I mean, it's not rocket science. It sounds so simple and obvious, but the thing I hear more than anything else from people in my own life, people who follow and subscribe to our career products, is what can I do? I don't want to give to a Democrat anymore. Like, right. Where it's like their only tool used to be voting and donating to candidates or organizations they believed in. And this helplessness is one of the most dangerous kind of outcomes of an authoritarian takeover regime. And the fact that you guys are doing things in really intention to making this very easy for anyone who wants to get involved to participate in at a local level, I think is so powerful, so urgent, so necessary. And so I would love to know, how can people get involved, but also this is going to inspire them, right, to start thinking about how can they throw sand in the gears in their own communities and organize their own. I'm sure that's something you guys promote as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we love people joining Sunrise. Like, it's smvmt.org/join. I can't get on anything without at least saying that once. So join the Sunrise movement, join a hub near you. But also, if like for whatever reason that's like not exact, maybe there isn't a hub near you, literally just get together with 3 of your friends and think about applying that framework, or literally using any of those tactics. You could like host a little hotel reservation booking party, book up a hotel with 10 friends, and then cancel it last minute and set yourself Google Calendar reminders. That's like one thing. Or if you want to get a little bit more creative, like you can think about what the equivalent of that is for ICE in your city. It's really just like a framework thing. And different people have access to different like parts of how society enables authoritarianism. Like, if you work in the media, there's like maybe something you can organize a campaign within the media about that. If you are a teacher, like there's like things about organizing schools to refuse ICE into your school. Like there's like always, so many of us have so much more access to power than we realize. If you work in the food service, like, is your restaurant a Fourth Amendment workplace where you won't allow ICE in it? Like, there's so much that we forget that we have access to power over. And that's like somewhat deliberate. We're sort of told that we have no power, but actually we make society run, and how are ways that we can refuse to let it run in this way.
It's so well put, because we forget that we have power, which isn't by design. And we say all the time, courage is contagious, and it is. And I think that it's very difficult to have courage when you don't feel any sense of agency or
Yeah.
possibility. And these actions can really make people feel that. Is that what you guys have been experiencing in the Twin Cities?
Absolutely. I mean, we've just seen this like influx of people joining our local hub, joining our national movement, and a lot of people see it as it's really hard to be in the Twin Cities right now. Like you drive down the street and you like see ICE agents, you see patrols, you get stories of your friends getting stopped.
It's chilling. I mean, I just got the bad kind of goosebumps when you said that. It's absolutely chilling.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think for a lot of people, joining a group, an organized group with a strategy, is actually like one of the few things that can make you feel better in this moment, which I think is like important to tell people. Organizing to me, I do it because I want to change the world, but it also brings me so much joy, happiness, and purpose that I don't know that I could find in any other place. So if you're feeling like lost or scared, I really truly believe that organizing is an answer to being able to face down fascism with courage and hope.
And joy. There's joy in
Joy.
it. And I couldn't agree more. And I think that, it's also important to tell people, no matter how old they are or what they thought about organizing or activism before, it's never too late to become an organizer and activist. And you don't
Never.
have to
Yeah.
have a label. It's really just being a member of your community at this stage.
And that's the remarkable thing about Minneapolis right now. I mean, I keep telling stories about this, but we are at a point where I think 5% of every single neighborhood is in a signal chat thinking about patrolling, which is incredible density. Like at any given moment, the bigger neighborhoods have like 1,000 people out patrolling at any moment per neighborhood. It's just like a incredible density of, you know, we can call them organizers or activists, but at the end of the day, it's just like people who care about what's going on because these are our neighbors and our friends, and this is our home that's getting tear gas block by block, and we want to do something about it. So if you first, if you don't identify with the label of an activist, like you don't have to. This is really just about getting out there and protecting our homes and protecting our people.
You and your organization and just the people of the Twin Cities have demonstrated that to the whole country, that you can fight, and it's been wildly inspiring. And also, have put together the playbook, really, that we know that we are in a moment of momentum right now because the pressure is on, and we have to keep the pressure on in all of the ways. I want to hear you speak to that a little bit, but we also know that this isn't going to end with Minneapolis,
No.
St. Paul. And so I would also love to hear where you guys are thinking of focusing next, but also, what advice you would give to small networks of people, individuals who are going to experience something similar to what you guys unfortunately have been in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things I'd say. One, I'd say like there are so many roles that we need in this moment that no matter who you are or what you are interested in, we need help. Like in Minneapolis or in your city, I think one of the most remarkable things about the response in Minneapolis has just been how well we have covered various parts of the infrastructure needed. We have like organized school patrols at morning and like pick up at drop off and pick up times that make sure that kids are safe. That's run by a lot of like parents and teachers, and that's really powerful. And we have grocery drop offs for undocumented people or people who are just brown who like cannot feel like they're afraid to go outside, so people are dropping off groceries to them. And then we have like these giant patrol groups, and then we have what we're doing, which is more like offensive campaigns that is designed not just to slow down the arrest but to actually drive out ICE out. And the fact that that ecology gets to exist together, I think, is really powerful and really beautiful, and also means there is a place for everyone in the organizing that you want to do, or however you want to help. So that's the first thing I'd say is I'm like, there's always a path in. And you're absolutely right. Like this didn't start with Minneapolis. It certainly isn't going to end with Minneapolis. I do think that Minneapolis could be a turning point, not just in ICE, but in Trump's regime in general. I think that because I think for the last year or so, we've been bombarded with crisis after crisis, and it has rarely felt like ordinary people have the power to turn the tide, even when they don't feel good about what's going on. And I think this is perhaps the first example that we've seen in the last year or so of being able to like start to see a defeat. And I've seen a lot of signs of that. Like, I mean, Gregory Bambino, like leaving, I think is a good sign.
I will take that demotion until he's behind bars. That's
Yeah,
what I really want to see, but I'll take the demotion as a start.
Totally. And I think to me, the demotion is less, I like whatever about the demotion, but it's more like, okay, you have to understand Trump's psychology here. He's demoting Gregory Bovino because he realizes that he needs to save face right now. And this is what he does.
They know they are under fire. Yes.
Exactly. Like the Republican candidate for governor in Minnesota decided to drop out of the race because he can't stand with his party. That's remarkable. So yeah, I think just to say,
we're seeing the NRA demand an investigation.
Exactly, the NRA.
This has transcended all. This was the overreach that we were waiting for, that couldn't believe wasn't coming with all of the other incredible abuses of power, but it does feel like that is happening now.
Yeah, which I think is remarkable, and I think that means, one, it's time to start getting organized. Like I was looking back at our planning documents from October and November, and we had basically brainstormed red lines that we were like, if any of these things happen locally, we are going to jump into rapid response mode. And one of the red lines that we brainstormed was ICE kills somebody in Minneapolis. And it happened. Like that's like strategizing that happened beforehand. I'm like, get together with your friends, pick a pillar of support that you want to move. Think about like the red lines that the administration might do in your city that would enable you to jump into rapid response mode. Like this is exactly what we did, right? It's like it's planning, it's strategizing, it's also basic. Like it's not rocket science. It's anything anyone can do, but it's just about getting the tools out there so people feel enabled to do them.
Yeah, and feeling more confident with them. So it wouldn't be Gloves Off if I didn't ask you, where do you source your courage to be able to do this kind of work? Because I think it is scary to a lot of people to put themselves out there in this way. And I'm curious, where does that come from for you?
I think it's just from everybody else, which is maybe a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I think it's really, really beautiful that when Renee Good and Alex Priddy were killed, the reaction of 20,000 people across the Twin Cities was to go and do the same thing that they were being killed for doing, like recording and filming what was happening. I think last night 200,000 people got on a Zoom call to learn how to do the same thing. Like that is courage to me, and it's courage that's like very everyday and very basic, because we like believe in protecting basic rights of our neighbors and of each other and of ourselves. So that's what I'd say above all. Like the courage that other people have reminds me to be courageous, and I think it kind of just gets passed around.
I think that's beautiful. Is there anything else that folks should know about Sunrise Movement and the work you guys are doing now and moving forward?
I think I'll say that, it's this time is very dark in a lot of ways, but at the core, we're called Sunrise because we are like a hopeful movement. And I believe that we're not just fighting against the bad, but for a better world for all of us. I think that we could turn this into kicking Trump out of power and then being able to actually like win reforms to our political system that enable us to have a system that's like doesn't work for billionaires and works for everyday people, where we can actually pass legislation that most people want. Because at the end of the day, I believe that like a lot of people want some common sense things like clean air and clean water and healthcare and a livable wage. And we've just been put in the situation where our broken political system denies us things that the majority of Americans are actually united on. So I'm here for the day where we can actually win big.
Amen. And I hate that it came to this, but I kind of believe that it probably needed to, because the iterative change and the Band-Aids were not working with the system.
They weren't working. And it's really important that we take this moment and we use it to win for all of us.
Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and your team is doing, Aru. It's deeply inspiring, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
These conversations and the courage of these leaders are only as contagious as the audiences we reach. So if you felt inspired by this conversation and episode, please consider sharing it on your own social platforms and with your friends and networks. If you don't already, please follow Courier Newsroom wherever you follow news and information, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you can be the first to know when our next conversation drops. So excited to be in this fight with all of you. And until next time, please take care of yourselves. We need you.